Hello, welcome back to my studio. This is Colleen from Designs of Value Art, and today we're going to talk about doing this iris bud. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this petal and we're going to put it on our board 3 times. Now I took my masking fluid, here it is, and went around the outside and let that dry. It's been on there for quite some time, so we'll be okay. It's nice and dry. But we're going to start with the backgrounds. I taped it. I guess this one, the inside ones I did not tape. But we are going to start with the background. We're going to do, on the very first petal, our background is going to be a all green mid-value acrylic. We're going to see how we like that. The acrylic paint that I'm using, and I always use, is DecoArt Americana. When I painted and taught in acrylics, this was the only brand I ever used because it is a true acrylic paint. So we'll blend these together and make the color that we're looking for. And then we'll go ahead and let that dry, and then on the next video we'll do the background in watercolors, and it's going to be a soft green and yellow, very similar to the resource material, or as you know, somewhat similar to that. And then on the third background we're going to try watercolors again. We're going to do a red violet, which there is some red in here. I know as I look at my camera I see this looks very, very blue, but it's actually a red violet. And so we'll get some of that in there along with some yellow and a little bit of brown, beige colors, that type of thing. So you'll get to see me do 3 different backgrounds, and what that's going to do then is it's going to allow us to look at those backgrounds and decide which one did we like the most before we go ahead and do the entire project. So this is a good way to start. Now I'm using cold press Arches 140-pound watercolor paper. I've taped it down to my MDF board, and the light source is coming from the upper left, so it's coming in this direction. Light travels in a straight line, so it's going to come here, and that's what it's going to do. So let's go ahead and create our mid-value acrylic green. Now I don't use watercolor brushes on acrylic paint, never, never ever. This is an acrylic palette. It's a Master's Touch Hobby Lobby 9x12 paper palette. So, and this is a shiny surface. I always will use a palette knife. I buy these plastic ones right at Hobby Lobby as well, that I can stir up the paint until I get it to the consistency I want and the color value that I'm looking for. Now, if I were using this on the big background, then I would use the larger brush. But as long as we're doing the smaller background, I'm just going to do this angle brush. This one happens to be a Royal, and it's a 1/2 inch angle. So just so you have an idea of what I'm using. Now I'm using Primary Cayenne, which is the blue, and Hansa Yellow Light as the 2 colors to create my mid-value green. Let's see what we can come up with. We don't need a lot, so whatever comes out of here to begin with is going to be probably way too much, but that's okay. Just so you know, with watercolor or acrylics, if you've never worked with acrylics, whatever you put out, you're going to be done with it at the end of the day because it's going to dry overnight. You can't recapture it. So don't necessarily need to put a lot out. Way too much blue. Well, yellow's getting in there, so it's gonna get a little bit softer. This is a blue green. I want a mid value. This is more of what I would call a darker value. So we'll add some more yellow. And I'm going to add it at this time little by little, just to see where we go with this. See how I'm scraping my palette and bringing all the color together, making sure it's completely mixed. You can still see some yellow splotches in there, so I know I need to blend this a little bit better. There we go, one more time with the yellow. And just keep blending, making sure that there's no yellow to be seen in the pile of paint. You want to blend it all together. You want to make sure you get all the paint in as you blend it. Otherwise you'll have a mid-value green on one end and a darker blue value green on the other if you don't get it all mixed in. That's why these palette knives come in handy. Scrape your palette and bring everything together. I think one more time ought to do it. It's lightening it up, but it's lightening it up slowly. That dark is a strong, or dark blue is a strong color. Alright, we're getting there. I think this is going to work. I think we're going to be good here. If you're looking at a color and you're not quite sure what value it is it the value you want, you can always take it against a clean part of the palette and go like that, because that's going to tell you what value that is. It looks very similar to the pile because I mixed it real well. And that's what you want. Now, I don't like to put this right into my water bucket without wiping it off first. And what's nice about this little palette knife is you can, being plastic, it does not have a wooden handle, you can just leave it right in your bucket if you want to. I like to get as much of that acrylic paint off of there so it doesn't go into my watercolor. So pretty good. I'll let that soak in there. I'm going to set this aside. Bring this over here so we got a place to put it. I'll put it this way so you should be able to see it. This one's going to be fairly self-explanatory. You're going to just go right up to the edge. Now this doesn't have any tape in here, so wondering if I do have some tape in here. Great. I'm going to put it, because when we get to the watercolors, we want to have that separated. We don't want the colors to mix into each other. This one wouldn't be quite so bad. Put my paints aside. Put it right over the line. I don't want to go on the petal though. There we go. Different color tape so you could see it, which is okay. Okay, we are good to go. Now I'm going to take my small brush, or I remember what I did with it. There it is. I always like to make sure my tape is down, because if you don't, water, color, all of that can seep underneath it, and you don't want that to happen. Right. So I'm going to take my big brush and set it aside. We don't need it right now. Get this one wet. Doesn't need to be soaking wet, but I like to kind of wake it up so it knows I'm going to use it. I know that's silly, but alright, just go right down. Well, that's going to be a pretty color. I don't know if it's going to be a color I like against the flower itself, but we'll see. We might like it, and we might not. That's the idea behind this process, is to test out what we would like and what we won't like. And then after we get the backgrounds in, we'll go ahead and do the veins. And the first one here we'll do wet on wet, the second one we'll do wet on dry, and then the third one we'll do wet on damp, and we'll see which ones we like the most there too. And you always have the capability of intermixing those. You don't have to do the entire flower just one way. If you think, for example, this area needs to be a little bit more wet on damp to do it, then do it that way. The other areas need to be wet on dry, then do it that way. And this is another good practice to figure out which way you think is going to look the best on this particular design. I know it's March here, and actually it's almost the end of March. It's the 21st, and we're going to start seeing some of these tulips and daffodils and different colors coming in pretty quick. Got them all over my yard. I had a whole lot more when we first moved in, but my husband didn't like going around them. The lady that lived here before just planted everything in sight. It was a lot, but he just kind of mowed down what he didn't want and didn't even tell me, just did it. I was like, oh no, all those beautiful flowers gone. So the one thing you want to remember with acrylics is you don't want to leave any ridges, because it will dry with a ridge in it. So you want to make sure everything's nice and smooth. Another advantage to using acrylics is you usually only need one coat. I did a background on a maple leaf, and that was black, and boy, that one coat just was heavenly, to be able to put down one coat and not have to fuss with it. If I had done that was acrylics, if I had done that in watercolors, I'd still be painting that background. It just does not give you that kind of a coverage that acrylics does, especially for a larger background. Not that this is a huge background to do, but it still is a huge time saver. But we'll see. Now see, I just went over. So I'm going to take an older brush, get it wet, and while that's still moist, you can pick that up, kind of like a watercolor. But if you don't pick it up, don't let it dry, you won't get it up. So that's just a good tip. You want to get that acrylic off of there while it's dry, because otherwise it's not going to come off. And this watercolor art just is so good. It'll take this abuse very easily without an issue. And when you're doing this, and I'm not scrubbing or anything, but you are going back and forth on that paper, and you raise the nap, the top coating of the paper, and it becomes rough, and it may not accept watercolor paint after that. So what I always do is let it dry completely, lay down I just use the Viva paper towels, lay that down, and I take my smooth stone basically and go over it with that paper towel in between, and that just smooths it right back down to the way it was originally. And then it'll accept watercolor paint without an issue. I'm just going to pick that up. Look at that, it's completely gone. Let me clean out this brush I was using. So you want to be careful. I haven't painted in acrylics in a while other than that background that I did. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Make sure you can see me, and it looks like you can. Use the side of your brush and run it right down. These angled brushes are great for this type of thing. You can get right up to that corner and not create too much of a problem doing it. So it works out pretty well. The other nice thing about acrylics, if you feel, is this is a lighter value than when I was doing the black, that you need another coat, you can just go ahead and do another coat. So it works out pretty well. I'm just being a little bit more cautious up to that edge because I don't want to go over. Make sure it's smooth. Well, I did just go over, so. Clean that up in a moment. Now you can dry this just like you can watercolors with a hair dryer, so that works pretty slick. Alright, I am going to turn the board around so I can get at this edge a little bit better. Yep, need to clean that edge up. Not too bad. Again, you just want to make sure you get it before it dries. Okay, let's continue. Manipulate that corner to work for you, which is great with this brush. This is dry, so I'm going to just go over that section because it looked like it needed it. not a bad color. I don't think it's the color I would have chosen for this design, but I think it will be all right. But that's what we're doing this for, so we can see whether we like that or not. I would like to see more people do the acrylic backgrounds. You don't see a lot of it, but I think it really saves an enormous amount of time and gives you a nice smooth background. To work with when it's done. Okay, and I'm dropping things here, but that's all right. They're not going anywhere except my table. Just try and see if I can go over some of these areas that I would like to see a little more full in color, and then we won't have to do a second coat. Okay, I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other backgrounds. So I'll be right back with you. And actually, we're going to finish this for this week. Next week, you'll see me do this background, and then the following week, you'll see me do that background. And now, if you want to see more content like this, please let me know in the comments on my YouTube channel. Hit the like button, let YouTube know that you like this type of content. And you can also check me out at Patreon. I have a Patreon site where you can watch me step by step paint these types of designs. So we'll see you next week.